We are talking about circles and circumference and measuring angles in arcs. And we want to solve problems using the circumference of a circle. So circumference can be written as in two equations. C stands for circumference, and that can be equal to 2 times pi times r, or C can be equal to pi times d. The difference in the two equations is basically just the equation for diameter, where diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. And basically that is the difference. So we have radius times 2 here, and we have the diameter here. So basically it's the same equation, just kind of written a little differently. So then we have some example problems. The radius, diameter, or circumference of a circle is given. Find the other measures in terms of pi and to the nearest tenth. So we want to have an exact answer, which would be in terms of pi, and then we want to have it to the nearest tenth, which would be just multiplying pi through. So in this case, we are given the radius, and we want to calculate the circumference. So circumference is equal to pi times d. We're given r in this case. So circumference is going to be equal to 2 times pi times r. And we can substitute the values in. And circumference is equal to 2, and then our radius in this case is 7 times pi. 2 times 7 is 14. So in the exact terms, or in terms of pi, circumference is equal to 14 pi. Now this is approximately equal to, if we use our calculator, and we can say 14, and then pi button is located above the caret key right there, and it's written in blue ink, so we want to activate the blue keys on our calculator, and then we get approximately 44.0. So approximately 44.0. So that is the two answers. One is in terms of pi, which is an exact answer, and then we have an approximate rounded answer by plugging those in our calculator. The other relationship we want to calculate is diameter. In this case, we know that diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So in this case, diameter is equal to 2 times 7. So diameter is equal to 14. The next example, we are given the diameter, and we can calculate the circumference again. And we can do this by circumference is equal to the diameter times pi, or pi times the diameter. So we can substitute the values in that we know. Circumference is equal to pi times 32.4. And when we actually write this down, we usually write the constant first, or the coefficient first. So we're going to write it down as C is equal to 32.4 pi. Now we can get that approximation by just plugging this in our calculator, and we get the circumference is approximately equal to 101.8. Next we have to calculate the radius. And we know that radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. So radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. So radius is equal to 32.4 divided by 2. So our radius is equal to 16.2. The next one, we're given the circumference, and we have to calculate our radius and calculate our diameter. So there are two equations that we can use. We can use our radius equation, which means that the circumference is equal to 2 pi times r. And the other is we can use the circumference is equal to pi d. And we can substitute the values in that we know and solve both of those equations. So the first one, we know that the circumference is 116.5, so we can substitute that in. And that is going to be equal to 2 pi times r. We want to solve for r, so what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 2 pi. So the exact value for our radius, first of all, we can divide 116.5 divided by 2, and we end up with 58.25. But then that is still divided by pi, and that is equal to the exact value for our radius. Now we can get the approximation by plugging this in our calculator, 58.25 divided by pi, and we get an answer of 18.5, which is an approximation. It's not exact, it's an estimation of pi. So those are our two answers for the radius. And then we have our circumference there, and we can substitute in the 116.5, which is 116.5 is equal to pi d. And we want to divide both sides by pi. And that is our exact answer right there. So our pi cancels our pi, and we're left with 116.5 divided by pi. That is the exact answer of B. Or if we plug that in our calculator, we get about 37.1 is approximately equal to D. Then we have two more examples. It says, find the exact circumference of each circle. Now the exact circumference means that we have to write it in terms of pi, because this is an approximated, so we want to write our answer in terms of pi. So here we have 14 inches given to us there. But what that ends up doing is that translates to our circle, because our circle touches the edges of that box, or is tangent to the edges of that box. So our diameter is also going to be 14 inches. So now we have our diameter. We can use our circumference equation, and we know that C is equal to pi times d. So we can substitute in the values that we know, and circumference is equal to the diameter in this case is going to be 14, and we still have pi, and the units on that are inches. So our final answer for this one is C equals 114 pi inches. That's the exact answer. Next, we have another example. In this one, what we have to do first is we have to calculate the diameter. So we are given a side of 24 inches, we're given a side of 10 inches, and we're given that it's a right triangle. So we know that this is the right triangle, so we know that this side over here is the hypotenuse. And usually in a hypotenuse like this, when we're talking about Pythagorean theorem, we represent the hypotenuse with a C, and the other two sides are A and B. So we can say that B is equal to 24, and we can say A is equal to 10. So we can write it as C squared is equal to the sum of the two sides squared together. So we have A squared plus B squared. We can substitute in the values that we know. We do not know what C squared is. We know that A is 10, so 10 squared, and we know that B 24, so 24 squared. Then we can do the square of those values, so we get C squared is equal to 10 squared, which is 100, plus, that's 100, plus 24 squared, which is 576. And we can add those together, so we get C squared is equal to 676. And in order to solve that, what we have to do is we have to take the square root of both sides of the equation. So we take the square root of both sides. Our square cancels our square root, and we're left with C is equal to 26. Now, in this case, our C value also happens to be our diameter. So our diameter is also here, so our diameter is equal to 26. C and D represent the same side, the same diameter there. So we can get our exact value. Again, we can say our circumference is equal to pi times d. So then we get our circumference is equal to pi times 26. So then an exact value, we get circumference is equal to 26 pi centimeters. And I should probably put centimeters over here as well, and centimeters over here as well.